الصلاة والسلام عليك.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursalin Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most compassionate, all praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon His final messenger Muhammad, and may the peace and the blessings and the mercy of Allah Almighty be upon each one here today. Now, I've still got another request. Can the last two rows come nearer? Okay? I'm being a bit awkward, but I want to see you. I want to look into your faces when I'm talking to you. But it's a bit far away. Brother, you can turn that off or the battery will go. And every so often when you take a picture, turn it off. And take it from behind the piece. Don't take it from here. Take it from behind it. I only want about 5. Okay? Thank you very much for being so cooperative, and please forgive us for keeping you waiting. First of all, I want to say how honoured I am. You honour me in inviting me to say a few words to you about Islam this evening. You really do honour me. For those of you who are Muslim, over 12 years old, you know more about Islam than I do. You know, and I guess that's pretty much all the Muslims here. I've been Muslim for nearly 12 years now, so you know more about Islam than I do. So I've not come to teach you anything you don't know. All I've come is to say a few words about Islam that maybe you've heard before, that you know, but maybe I'll say it in a way you've not heard it said before. Perhaps because of the background I come from and so on. So that's the first thing. You honour me so much in inviting me to come. This is part of a tour that this week it started in Cambridge University, then Oxford, then Bournemouth, then Surrey, now here, and on to Essex tomorrow. And then there's another week before I go back home to Egypt. Now before I begin, we're going to talk about Islam in the 21st century, Islam and the 21st century. Call it whatever we want. But I want to say a few words to start with. And usually by introductions, often we never get around to the talk. Because there are so many things I want to say before we get to the meat of the talk that we never get round to it. But they're important. So and the thing I'm going to say first is the most important thing I'll say in the evening. And it's this. Some water's coming, yes?
Yeah, it's there.
It's there, very good. Just let me take a sip of water. Or this way. Okay. We'll put it in there. It's this. I don't know why I'm here tonight in Brighton. I don't know why I'm here. Obviously I was invited, I didn't just turn up. I didn't just get on a train and turn up to give a talk. Someone asked me to come. But why exactly I'm here, I don't know. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is, you know, tonight I could be giving a talk anywhere in the world. I could be giving a talk in New York about Islam, or a talk, now this is very important, so look this way. Don't think about people coming in the door. This is so important. These are the most important words of the evening. I could be giving a talk in New York, or Australia, or Paris, or Cairo, but I find myself tonight in Brighton. And I wonder why I'm here. I don't know why I'm here. All I know with absolute certainty is that He who created the heavens and the earth, and everything in between, at the beginning of time, when He was making the moon and the stars and everything there is, He planned that I would be here tonight. It was part of His plan. Imagine, He had time to think of us here tonight when He was creating the moon and the stars and everything. So that I know with absolute certainty. Now, the thing is, I don't know you. I don't know you at all. I don't know any of you. So I would suggest to you as well, you know, maybe you don't know why you're here. Maybe you don't normally come to talks about Islam. Maybe you're Muslim, but you're not all that fanatical about your religion. You don't go to talks, really, religious talks. Or maybe your friend brought you, or there was nothing else to do, or whatever. But you're here because Allah Almighty planned that you would be here tonight as well. Now, as I say, I don't know you. It could be that there's someone in this lecture theatre tonight, a Muslim maybe, who doesn't pray 5 times a day. And Allah Almighty has brought us all here. He's brought me from Cairo. And He's brought you from all over. Is this working or not? Yes, it is. He's brought you from all over the campus where you are, and the city. For the sake of that one person who doesn't pray. We're like actors in a drama, you know? And that's the important person. And we're all here just to support him. Maybe there's someone here, you know, who really doesn't like Islam and has bad ideas about Islam from what they've seen on the TV. And they've come along, you know, well, we'll see what these Muslims have to say, but we're a bit suspicious. Well, maybe Allah has brought us all. I don't like this thing. It doesn't work. Can you hear me okay if I talk like that?
Yeah.
I won't use that. You're sure you can hear me okay?
Yeah.
This one works. The problem with these is, often I look like a suicide bomber. I've got all these wires going everywhere, you know, just... Sometimes you've got one for the TV and one for the sound, and you really look as though you're just about ready to blow yourself up. I think that's fine. So, you know, maybe He brought us here for not for the reason we think. Now, I'm not sufficiently self-obsessed to believe that Allah Almighty is going to speak through me. You know, in 3 or 4 days' time, you won't even remember my name. You know, you won't know who I was. And you might remember something or you mightn't. But maybe Allah Almighty will speak to you tonight on the way home on the bus. He brought us all here to this talk because He was going to talk to someone in this room, to someone on the bus on the way home, through the bus driver, or through a passenger sitting next to you, you know, or someone giving you tea, or with one of your friends. Socrates, the Greek philosopher, used to say, the unexamined life is not worth living. And we need to keep asking ourselves questions all the time. As people of faith, Allah Almighty, God Almighty, by the way, if you're not Muslim, and Allah, the name Allah gives you a problem, well, we can use another name if you prefer. We can say God Almighty. You know, we're not going to insist on things that are a problem. We'll say Allah because in the Quran, that's what Almighty God calls Himself. He says Allah. But if you prefer to think God, well, God is fine. You know, French people say Dieu. Spanish people say Dios. Italians Dio. Germans Gott. English God. And Arabs say Allah. You open any Bible in the Arab world and it would tell you that Allah created the heavens in 6 days, and on the 7th day He rested. So Allah is the Arabic word for God. No matter what Malaysians, as I see we have some Malaysian friends here, no matter what Malaysians, they have a bit of a problem over that name. So Allah Almighty is with us, people of faith. He's with us all through our lives, walking side by side with us. And most of the time we pay Him no attention at all. You know, we only turn to God. We only turn to Allah when we need Him most of the time. You know, we've got exams coming up, and we say, oh, please, please help me in my exams. I'll never open those sites again. You know, I'll give up tea in my sugar in my tea. I'll do whatever you want. Please. So when we want something, we turn to Allah. Sometimes in life, He gives us a little push from behind to remind us. Sometimes in life, He gives us a kick. But most of the time, we don't think about Him. So I invite you tonight, you know, put me out of your sights and instead listen to your relationship with Almighty God. What does Allah want to say to you tonight? And that's why I've come from Cairo. He's just brought me as the catalyst for you to ask yourselves that question. What is Allah saying to you tonight? Now, we're going to say a few words about Islam in this modern age. You know, Islam is presented to the world as though it's some sort of fanatical religion of Arabs. And before I was Muslim, I knew everything about Islam. Everything. I knew that Muslims blew themselves up and they chop your hands off and they hit women. I knew all of that. No one could tell me anything about Islam. I knew it all. In fact, just let me give you a little bit about who I am, a bit about my story, before we carry on, because it might be important, it might help you. I'm not going to give you my full journey to Islam, because that would take too long, okay? But I'll give you a little taste. So if you're interested, you can invite me back another time, maybe, inshallah. I used to be a priest, and I left the priesthood, bismillah, I left the priesthood with no plan whatever of leaving my religion. None at all. I was perfectly happy as a Catholic. I had no problem with the Bible, or the church, or the bishop, or the pope. No problem with any of it. It was all fine. But, you know, as a priest, you wouldn't understand if you're not Catholic, but as a priest, being a priest, is a very privileged thing. I say that in the best way. You know, people allow you into their lives at very privileged moments. They allow you, when their children are born, to baptize their children. You know, to anoint their parents who are dying before death, to listen to their confessions, to marry them. You know, it's a very privileged case. And so the people I worked with, they loved me as their priest, and I loved them very much. But one of the problems was, you know, all day long I was listening to people's troubles and helping people. And then at the end of the day, I'd go home to an empty house. I'd open the door in the empty house and go in, and there was no one there, and it was cold. And I felt very lonely. So after some time, I said to myself, this is too much. You're going to have to leave the priesthood, even though everyone will be very disappointed with you. If you're a priest and you leave the priesthood, it's like your house burning down and a death and a divorce all rolled into one on the same day. It's a big deal. So I said to myself, what you need to do is get away. You need to get away take a holiday. You know, sisters, how sometimes you're feeling a bit down in the dumps. So you go off and buy yourself a new hijab to cheer yourselves up, you know? A nice, a red hijab or a green one to cheer yourself. Or the boys, you know? You buy yourself a new pair of trainers or whatever it might be. Well, I wanted a holiday, so I looked on the internet for the cheapest holiday I could find. And the cheapest holiday of all places on earth was to Egypt. Now, I knew nothing about Egypt. Camels, sand, pyramids, palm trees, and one problem: Muslims. Because, as I said, I knew all about Muslims, and I honestly thought to myself, because I believed what the TV told me, as everyone does in this country. What else have they got but the TV and the newspapers? And so I said to myself, you know, if you go to Egypt, these Muslims, they might kidnap you. They might keep you in a darkened room blindfolded and ransom you, you know, hold you for ransom. And I seriously had to say to myself, do I want to go to such a place full of all these fanatical Muslims waving swords and, you know, shouting jihad and Allahu Akbar all the time? And in the end I said, well, it's either there or nowhere, because you've got no money. So I said, okay, I'll go. So I went to Egypt, to a place on the Red Sea called Hurghada. If you've never been to Hurghada, don't bother. Don't go. I arrived there, and it was just like any beach resort anywhere in the world. And I arrived and I said, but this isn't what I've come for. I've not come for, you know, an Italian or a Spanish beach holiday. I've come for something different. So I got on a coach and travelled all through the night to Cairo. And that visit to Cairo changed my life. Because for the first time in my life, I met Muslims. You know, I'd seen Muslims in this country, but you don't talk to Muslims. You know, I'd seen them in the street, but... And certainly no Muslim had ever talked to me. No Muslim had ever said Salaam Alaikum to me, never. So, to cut a very long story short, go to my website and see the whole story, idristawfiq.com, or go to YouTube, you'll see the story there. I was staying in a very cheap hotel because I had no money. Salam, brother. And I walked from you've probably heard this a million times, I walked from my hotel in Shara Ramses. It's a very busy, poor area of Cairo. And there was a little lad over here, about 14 years old, cleaning shoes in the street. And he looked up at me, and he was wearing a shabby galabeya, a little plastic flip-flops on his feet. And he looked at this white-skinned khawaga, this foreigner, and he said to me, Assalamu alaikum. And you know, he meant it. He meant peace be upon you. No Muslim had ever said, peace be upon me, ever before. And he really meant it. And for the rest of that week, I would pass that little boy, and I went and I learned some Egyptian words off the internet. So I'd pass him every morning, and eventually I'd greet him and I'd say, Zayak. Zayak ya Habib. Zayak ya Gamil. And he would reply to me, Alhamdulillah, all praise be to Allah. You know, and I'd never come across faith like that in a little boy who had nothing. He didn't have two pennies to rub together. But his faith was obvious. It was, you know, it was in his veins. So I left Egypt at the end of that week. And I mean, there are many things I could tell you about my week in Cairo that week of meeting Muslims for the first time. And I went back, and a year and a bit later, I accepted Islam. We'll talk about that little boy at the end, okay? But that's just to whet your appetite to the story. We'll mention the little boy at the end because it's important for you. I don't just tell it because it's not for him, it's for you I tell it. So we're talking tonight about Islam. You know, I can see here that there are Muslims here and there are non-Muslims here. Now what the Muslims think about Islam, I don't, the non-Muslims think, I don't know. But equally, what the Muslims think, I don't know either. Because, you know, let me give you an example. We'll make up a boy called Ahmed. And Ahmed is sitting in his lecture halls at university on a Friday morning, surrounded by his non-Muslim friends. And they like him, they like Ahmed, and they say to Ahmed, hey Ahmed, are you going to come with us tonight to the disco? You know, we'll have a few beers, we'll meet a few girls, do you want to come with us? And Ahmed says, I can't come with you. I'm Muslim. And so the friends see that this Islam, it's a burden on the poor lad's life, you know. He'd love to go to the disco, he'd love to meet the girls and drink the beer. But I'm Muslim, I can't. But you see, that poor boy Ahmed, like so many of us, certainly like so many young Muslims, no one's ever told him why he can't drink the beer, or why he can't go to the disco. No one ever told him. He's been brought up. One of the advantages I have of coming to Islam late in life is that I ask questions all the time, especially when I first became Muslim. I'd ask people, why do we do this as Muslims? You know, and often Muslims would say to me, not sure really, it's just what we do. You know, we need to know why we're doing it. What kind of a faith is it that you do things you don't know why you're doing it? Take, for example, hijab. Muslim girls wear hijab. But many of them have no idea why. They've no idea. No one ever told them why. You see in Egypt, I don't know about Brighton, but you see in Egypt, you know, along the Corniche by the Nile, you see girls with hijab, and the hijab is fastened so tightly around their head so that there's not a wisp of hair showing. Every wisp is pushed back. But she's wearing full makeup and tight jeans. And I say to myself, what's this supposed to be? Did your mother not explain to you what you're wearing hijab for? Why did your mother let you out the house dressed like that? Because no one told her why she's wearing it, you know? I always say to sisters, wear a hijab over your heart first. Then you can put it on your head. Cover your heart with hijab. You know, but I do a workshop sometimes about hijab for sisters. But sometimes we let boys attend. And if the boys are there, I say, now someone please tell me why Muslim girls wear hijab. Boys tell me, so one clever clogs. Haha, I know. Yes, why do Muslim girls wear hijab? To conceal their beauty. I see, to conceal their beauty. Well, once a girl, a sister attending, she put her hand up straight away. And she said, Brother Idris, if girls wear hijab to conceal, if hijab is to conceal your beauty, well, the boys should wear hijab as well. And that was very interesting. It's an interesting comment, you know. So there's something more about it than concealing beauty. So we asked more. I'm not going to tell you why. We'll save that for another talk as well. But come on to the boys. Tell me more. Conceal their beauty. Okay. Yeah, it's about covering the hair. Yeah. Okay. Tell us more. Because men are attracted to women's hair. Are they? Yeah, I think so. And we sound stupid. You know, we don't know why we do things. As Muslims, we do things, and no wonder the world looks at Islam and gets such funny messages. You talk about Islam in the 21st century. You know, when I was a kid, when I was a child, long ago, your dad said something, and you say, why? And he'd say, because I said so. It was as simple as that. You did it. In Egypt, you say, keda, lay about keda, because I said keda. But now the age of keda, the age of I said so, is gone. We don't live in that age anymore. You know, young people in Egypt, my students at Al-Azhar, they're the ones who died. Their blood has made holy the stones of Egypt. They've died overthrowing tyranny. These are not little kids. They need answers about life. You know, the young people in Egypt, I tell older people, I say, our sons taught us how to be men. For too long we kept silent and did nothing, and it took our kids to wake us up and shake us and say, we can't put up with this anymore. So in this age in which we live, people want answers to things, and it's no good doing things that we don't understand. What's the point of it? We need to understand our religion, because if we don't understand it, people will see through us, and it will have no meaning to them at all. You know, if we're doing things and it has no meaning, they'll pick it. It's no good saying to Ahmed, did you pray yet, Ahmed? Go and say your prayers, Ahmed. And Ahmed knows that his dad doesn't pray. That doesn't work. Ahmed is no fool. And he'll learn very quickly that praying isn't important. Daddy doesn't pray. You know, you can't say, go to the mosque, Ahmed, and pray Salat al-Gum'ah, but you stay at home. Ahmed will learn it's not important. And the world will learn, the world has learned about Islam by seeing Muslims. You see, Islam is perfect. Islam is absolutely perfect. There is nothing in Islam to be ashamed of at all, nothing. But Muslims are, you know, Muslims have done plenty wrong in the past and do it now. And we have plenty to be ashamed of, right to this day, each one of us. You know, by the example we speak. The people of Brighton, you know, Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, was asked, one of the wives of the Prophet, was asked to describe the Prophet, peace be upon him. And she said he was a walking Quran. Now the people of Brighton aren't going to read the Quran. They're not interested, they're interested in other things in Brighton. It's not the Quran for sure. The only Quran that they will ever read is you. There's no other Quran they'll read. You know? So you have a great responsibility to teach people about it. We talk about Islam in this age. If all people are getting about Islam is from the TV, well, what an awful Islam they're getting. But you see, we've got to understand things. The television, the newspapers, they have kind of a motto, if it bleeds, it leads. So blood and gore and guts is more important on the TV and in the newspapers than good things. So let's say the outside in the road, outside this road, 100 cars go past in the day, and just 2 of them have a road accident. The 98 cars won't make it into the newspaper because they're not news, no one's interested in them. But the 2 that have they'll be in it. Well, in the same way on your news, the news doesn't mention at night that today, you know, 1 billion grandmothers taught their daughters or their granddaughters how to recite Quran. That won't be in the news. But someone blowing himself up will, you understand? And we get a very distorted image of what's real by what we see on the television. I mean, you want to see the real Islam, come to my building in Egypt. You know, you'll meet a man and his wife downstairs and their 2 kids, very ordinary. He goes out to work to put food on the table for his kids. No hand grenades hidden in the kitchen. You know, no machine guns. Come on to my level, and there are 2 families there, very ordinary people, and upstairs more families too. Islam is very ordinary. A bus driver in Damascus is no different to a bus driver in New York. You know, they go out to work to pay the bills. They don't go out to work because they want to. One has been touched by the message of Islam, one hasn't. So, you know, if we want to tell the world, if we want to tell this age about Islam, we have to tell them the real Islam. As Muslims, we make Islam ever so complicated. We make it so complicated. And Islam is so simple. It's very, very simple. You know, we tell people you must do this and you must do this and this and this is one of the teachings and this one. I will sum up Islam for you in 2 sayings. This is Islam. If anyone wants to know what Islam is, this is it. 1, there is a God. And 2, that God speaks to his creation. That's Islam. And everything else is just to support that belief. There is a God. In Arabic, we say it, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Now, I'll translate the Arabic. I'll put it into my words. It's difficult to translate one language to another. And if we're translating the words of Almighty God, it's even more difficult. But I'll translate the Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I bear witness that there is nothing in this world or any other world worthy of worship but the one God in heaven. In other words, I bear witness that nothing will bring me happiness in this world but God. That's what we say as Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. When Prophet Muhammad entered Mecca, finally entered Mecca, at the head of a Muslim army, he entered the Kaaba, the sacred Kaaba, and he went inside and smashed all of the idols inside. And he did away with idol worship forever. There was never more to be any idol worship in Islam. And I would be surprised if any of the Muslims here in their homes have idols made of wood or stone. We would all say that is shirk, it's worshipping false gods, and we have nothing to do with it. But you know, we do worship idols. We worship all sorts of, I don't know you, but you know what idols you worship. You know, I went to the Maldives a year or 2 ago, and the Maldives is 100% Muslim. There are no non-Muslim Maldivians. You can't be a citizen unless you're Muslim. And when I entered, it was on the plane entry, you have to fill in a form, a customs declaration, that you're taking in no alcohol, you're taking in no cigarettes, and you're taking in no idols of worship. Never seen that before, but you have to declare you're not taking idols of worship into the Maldives. And I said to the Minister of Islamic Affairs, I said, Minister, you know, it's all very well filling in that form, but what's to stop the idols coming in through the internet and through the television and through the radio? There are idols there much more pernicious than idols made of wood and stone. And we, you know, we've all got computers, and there are idols we worship there. We needn't go into details. There are idols that keep us from Allah. Let's think of another one, football. Football can become an idol in our lives. Football's good, but it can be an idol. You know, we can be watching the TV, watching the football, and half time comes, and we've just got time to rush off and say Salat al-Maghrib, and we come back. So we rush as fast as we can, throw a bit of water on our socks, a bit of water here, swill it around our mouth, and back we go. And we don't think a single prayerful thought while we're praying, because our prayers will find us out. Our prayers will tell us what's important to us in life. You know, praying isn't magic. When we take our shoes off, we're the same person we were with our shoes on. We don't become this religious person all of a sudden. You've seen butterflies and little rabbits jumping around. We're the same person. So if we've spent the last 3 hours chatting to a girl in New York, you know, I'm giving her dawah, we say. We're not giving her dawah at all. We're chatting her because she's a nice looking girl in New York, okay? And it's time to pray. We go off, and all we think about when we should be praying is about the girl. Well, that's natural. Of course we think about the girl. We're not made of stone. If we're watching football and we're immersed in the football and rush off to say our prayers, we'll think about the football. It's natural. If Allah Almighty had wanted us to be angels, He would have made us angels. If He'd wanted us to be stones or trees, He would have made us stones or trees. But He chose to make us men and women, made of flesh and blood. And men and women have passions, and it's great. It's good to be men and women. But we just have to be careful, you know. And He's given us all the things we need to help us live good lives. All the things we need. So the first part is, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, there is a God. And the second part, that God speaks to His creation. This isn't just some kind of a God out there, a remote God in the middle of the universe. In the Quran we read that He created the heavens and the earth and everything in between, but we also read and he knows every leaf that falls from every tree. This is a God that knows all about us. And so we say, Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, I bear witness that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the messenger, is the last of many messengers that Allah Almighty has used to speak to his creation. And we've got names for them all. Moses, David, Solomon, Jesus, peace be upon them all. And Muhammad is the last one. Now that message of one God who speaks to his creation, that's the message for our age. You talk about the 21st century. Imagine in Haiti, a few years ago, there was a terrible earthquake. You know, and imagine a man is scrabbling in the rubble of the earthquake, looking for his son with his bare hands. It's natural for him to cry out, please save my boy. Take my eyes, but save my boy. The message of Islam is for him. There is a God who cares, who speaks to you. Take a man in Japan. Japanese are not famous for being very religious. And he's standing in his village, and coming towards him is a wall of water 30 meters high. It's natural for that man to cry out, save us from disaster. On a plane, you know, a plane full of people coming back from their holidays, none of them pray. And the engine cuts out and it starts plummeting to answer. There are no atheists on that plane. There are no agnostics. They all know then. Because they all start crying out, help us, save us, don't let us die. So this Islam that we've made so complicated and is associated in ordinary people's minds with all sorts of cultural things, cultural baggage, that message speaks to all people. And when Islam came in the 7th century, it came to turn the thinking of this world on its head. And it exists today to turn the thinking of this world on its head. The problem is, the Islam we give to our young people is so lukewarm that it wouldn't turn anyone's hand around, let alone turn the world on its head. You know, young people, young Muslims who've got big hearts, young Muslims who are committed to their faith, to their deen, they want to do great things for Allah, they want to be good people. But all we tell them as adults is how to curl your toes properly in prayer, and how to go to the toilet properly, and how long your galabaya should be. These are important things, but they're not that important. What is important is Almighty God, that's important. His Prophet, ﷺ, people, that's important. And what happens, or what has happened is, other people come, and they whisper to our young people, you want to do great things for Allah? Come with us. Come and we'll do great things, and we'll fight the enemies of Islam. And they steal our young people, and they get them to harm themselves and others, because we let them down and give them a very lukewarm faith that wouldn't excite anyone. Just as an aside, we'll just go off, just briefly, talk about Al-Azhar. You know, Al-Azhar University is 1,000 years old. And Al-Azhar for 1,000 years has been the authoritative voice of Sunni Islam in the world. When Al-Azhar has spoken, the Muslim world has listened. Now, unfortunately, for 30 years or more, Al-Azhar became associated with a regime that was less than good. You know? And it would only speak, Al-Azhar would only speak out on matters that affected the head of state or his wife. You know, so that they'd issued fatwas about should women wear trouser suits, because the First Lady always wore trouser suits. But if there's something to do with Muslims dying in Palestine or Iraq or Afghanistan, not a word was said. And so what happened was, Muslims began to lose interest and faith in Al-Azhar. It lost credibility in the eyes of Muslims. And what's worse, people in the West, because they weren't hearing people speak in the name of Islam, what they were hearing instead were voices coming from mountain caves and desert camps, speaking in the name of Islam. Now, everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's entitled to his own opinion. Anyone can say what he wants, but it's not Islam. He doesn't speak in the name of Islam. And the West was just hearing these people speaking on behalf of Islam. Well, now, since the revolution, inshallah, Al-Azhar will rise up once more, and the West will hear, for the first time in many years, about the real Islam. And that real Islam is very simple. Let me sum it up. I've not got much time. I'll sum it up very simply. There are 5 pillars. We call them 5 pillars of Islam. The first one we've dealt with is Shahada. There's one God, and he speaks to his creation. You know, life teaches us. Life is very busy in this country. And it teaches us that we should have more things. You know, own more things. It's important to have things and be more important than other people. And do people down if you need to get to the top. Well, Islam turns that on its head. And it's the abiding image of Islam is a Muslim whose forehead is touching the ground in prayer. Now that's not a politically correct image. Submission. That's not a very popular idea. We submit. A Muslim is one who submits to Allah. And his forehead touches the ground and he says, Allah Almighty, I am nothing without you. You know, I call myself a Muslim. I don't even get up in the morning to pray. What kind of a Muslim am I supposed to be? I talk about calling others to Islam and I'm jealous. You know, I speak behind people's backs. That's the kind of Muslim I am. But in submitting to Allah, we say, look, I'm nothing. Today, make me a better person, make me a better Muslim. So Islam is asking us all the time to be better people, not to have more, but to be better. And another of the pillars is that we pray 5 times a day. Some new Muslims, they say to me, Brother Idris, I'm so busy. I go to the office every day, and there are no Muslims in where I work. There's nowhere for me to pray. So I save the 5 prayers and I say them when I get home at night. Is that allowed? And I say, well, maybe once it's allowed, but you shouldn't really do it more than once. Why? Well, it's not the number that's important. We get hung up over rituals. It's not the number that's important. It's the why that's important. If the number was important, Allah would have said, well, on a Saturday you could pray 35 times. And then for the rest of the week, you don't need to bother, if it was the number. But it's not the idea of 5 is that we pray when at dawn, when the sun is about to come up. We pray when the sun is at its height in the heavens at noon. We pray in the middle of our work in the afternoon. We pray when the sun comes down at night, and then we pray later in the evening. And the idea is that it makes our whole day think about God. That's the idea behind it. But if we've got into the mindset of just, I've not said my prayers yet, I must go off and say my prayers, and we don't really give Almighty God a thought, well, the whole thing, we're missing the point of what are we doing it for? The whole thing is to make our lives better. There's a saint, a Christian saint called Saint Augustine of Hippo. He was an Arab from North Africa. And he used to say, you have made us, O Lord, for yourself, and our hearts will find no rest until they rest in you. We won't find happiness in this world except in Almighty Allah. And nothing will give us happiness. You know those fellows in London during the summer rioting, burning things down and smashing windows and stealing televisions from Curry's and all of that. When I watched that from Cairo, I said to myself, I know what these people want. They don't want a television with such a big screen from Curry's. They're not railing against the police. What they want is God. They want God in their lives, but they don't know where to find him. The only God they see is the God of religious people. And that's kind of failed in British society. Organised religion. In Egypt, with this saying this, afraid of this, it means I've had enough. And many young people, they say, Islam, I've heard enough about Islam. I've heard it from the Sheikh, I've heard it from the Imam, I don't want to know any more about Islam. You know, I just want to enjoy myself. But that message of Islam, it's for all people. As Muslims, we believe that Islam is the natural religion of mankind. It's existed since the beginning of time. It's for all people. You know, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ wasn't the founder of Islam. Islam has existed right from the beginning. So in prayer, what we do is, we're not as some people say, you're escaping from reality. We're not. We're escaping to reality. Just for a few moments, we're leaving the busyness of our lives. We call it business, but it's busyness. We're leaving the busyness of our lives aside, and we're setting a moment or two to think about what's important. Imagine all those people in the City of London. You know, they'd love the chance 5 times a day to leave all the global crisis behind, and stocks and shares and global markets, and just take a few minutes to calm down and think that thought. Well, as Muslims, we're given that chance 5 times a day, and we take it for granted. We take it for granted. In Ramadan, we fast. Now, you know, some Muslims write to me in Ramadan, especially new Muslims, and they say, Brother Idris, I don't feel anything in Ramadan. I don't feel any better. And I write back and say, well, no one said you would. It doesn't say in the Holy Quran, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, that you may learn taqwa, piety, and feel good. It doesn't say that. We do it for Allah's sake. But even though we do it for Allah's sake, fasting in Ramadan teaches us something very important. You know these bodies that control us all the time? Our bodies always want what they want. And all the time we give in to them. Well, Ramadan teaches us that it's possible to control these bodies, that they're not in control of us, but we're in control of them. And so Muslims, from morning until the sun goes down, they fast from food and drink and smoking and swearing and being bad and having sexual relations with their wives and their husbands. And they do all this for Allah's sake. And then when the fast is broken, they do all those things. It's not that those things are bad. All those things are good things. But they just give them up for Allah's sake to teach themselves it is possible to control these unruly bodies. So Allah gives us the gift of Ramadan to show us we're in charge of what we've got here. This flesh and blood needn't control us. We're in charge of it. Another one, zakat. There's something called zakat in Islam. It teaches us that, just imagine, global crisis teaches us to get more and more and more money all the time. Get people to borrow more money so we can make money off them. Well, Islam says if you've got extra money, give some of it away to poor people. What an extraordinary teaching. It actually teaches us to give our money away. And it's a fact that if the world did that, there'd be no poverty, there'd be no people starving to death, there'd be no housing crisis, and everyone would have enough. But we hoard. But Islam teaches us to give it away. And then the final one, Hajj. If we can, we're told as Muslims to go once in our lives, if we can afford it and we're able to do so, to go to Mecca to perform Hajj. Now, there are many things behind that, but this world teaches us, flags and countries and tribes are important, and the colour of our skin is important. We'll fight you if you set one foot on the Falkland Islands, and we'll send some ships to fight you back, and if you're in Europe, we'll do that. In the Holy Quran, Allah says, we have made you into nations and tribes. Why? That ye may know each other. Not that you may fight each other. And you see in the Hajj people of every colour, black and white and brown and yellow, blonde, black hair, no hair, grey hair, fat and thin, men and women, all together performing the Hajj. All saying there's something more important than anything else in this world, and it's Almighty God. So we talk about Islam in the 21st century. I have a friend who comes to the UK for Forces Tour, Sheikh Abdullah Hakim Quick. And he says, we have become a nation of trivia as Muslims. We have become we concentrate on trivial things. And because we put trivial things in front of important things, very often we've missed the point. And the world that isn't Muslim looks at us and isn't very impressed. At the Forces Conference in June, we were talking about Christians in the Middle East. And I said, there are about 8 million Christians in Egypt. And one brother put his hand up and said, well, why didn't those Christians become Muslim? And I said, well, maybe, let's be honest, maybe they weren't very impressed by what they saw. Let's be honest. In Brighton, when the people see you as Muslims, let the non-Muslims think this, but Muslims think it, when they see you, what do they think when they see you? They say, oh, there's some of those Muslims, That one over there, he's always swearing, He's the laziest boy in the class. He's always out with girls, that one, Or do they say, look over there, there's a Muslim over there. How can you tell he's a Muslim? I can tell he's a Muslim because he's an honest man. He's a man of prayer. He's faithful. He doesn't tell lies. He doesn't use bad language. He's on time for his classes. He's the best student in his class. He's the funniest guy there as well. He's good at sports. We can rely on him. Is that what they say? In this country, Britain, there are maybe 2 million Muslims, not many. But if you put 2 million people in a row, one behind another, that's a heck of a lot of people. It's a lot of people. And those people could teach Britain a lot about Islam. But unfortunately, you know, because we fall back sometimes into cultural practices and national and ethnic practices, and all we're teaching people, with respect to anyone who's here, we're teaching them about Pakistan or about Algeria, and we're not teaching them anything about Islam. Is it any wonder that the world looks at Islam and isn't very impressed? Is it any wonder that America and its friends look at the Arab world and treat the Arab world with utter contempt? You know, and give their money to the Arabs, and the Arab dictators take the money and do as they're told. Is it any wonder that no one's impressed by that? If, however, we lived as Muslims, what does that? Live as men and women who submit to Allah Almighty, who put Allah at the center of our lives, how the mighty powers of the West would sit up and listen to us and take us seriously, you know, and respect us, and there'd be real dialogue. But until that happens, there's just they talk at us and give us money, and we take the money. Thank you very much. What would you like us to do? We take the money. As Muslims, we're called to be an example to the world, a witness over the nations. You know, and the Prophet, a witness over us. This part of the talk, I'll just finish now, but I want to read you from my new book, because I want you to read my book, okay? I want you to buy it. So I'll read you a little bit from the book at the start. This particular chapter is called Getting Away from It All. This book, it's unlike my other books. This one is kind of a tourist book about Egypt. Now, why would I be writing a tourist book about Egypt? Every Tuesday there's a newspaper called Egyptian Mail, and I write in Egyptian Mail on a Tuesday a tourist piece. Just as today, a Saturday, I write in Egyptian Gazette a political piece. But on a Tuesday I write about sites in Egypt. I might write about the pyramids for tourists to read. Now, why would I want to do that? Because I want to tell them about Islam, but I do it in a very subtle way. So for the first 3 quarters of the article, I tell them the pyramids are this high and this old and this big, and you pay so much, and this is how you get there. And then towards the end I say, Muslims read in the Holy Quran, blah, 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 blah. And then I end with a little reflection on what we might learn by visiting those pyramids. So for example, we might learn that this pharaoh who built the biggest pyramid of all, in his day he was the monarch of everything he surveyed, and everyone obeyed him. And now the only statue that exists of him is that high in the Cairo Museum. You know, he's nothing, we don't even know who he was, yet in his day he was all important. So, inshallah, people learn a bit about Islam that way. Let me read you this, 43. This is about a place in Egypt called Siwa Oasis. It's a very beautiful oasis out in the White Desert. I'll read you the beginning and the end. Siwa Oasis is one of the most beautiful and remote places in Egypt. It's been this way for centuries. Life goes on there undisturbed by the steady advance of technology, which we call progress. The people of Siwa Oasis, who speak their own language and who have their own very distinct customs, far different from the rest of Egypt, have seen conquerors come and go, yet their lives and traditions go on. Alexander the Great made the long trek out to the Egyptian sand sea and the Libyan desert to consult the oracle of Amun, which very conveniently confirmed to him that he was divine. Italians, Germans and British have passed through. Their armies on the way to vanquish foes the people of Siwa knew nothing about. And then I go on and end this way. Muslims read in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Kahf. And then I'm going to tell you about the little boy. I pray that my Lord will guide me even closer than this to what is right. And then this is how it ends. We all need an oasis in our lives. Somewhere we can retreat to and refresh our spirits. It might be a favourite place like a walk along the seashore or a visit to the park. Our oasis might even be a special piece of music or a book of poems that helps us to unwind. Our modern world is very busy, but we can still find places to get away to, if even for only an hour or so. In fact, we need to make space in our lives for such a place. This is not a place to escape from reality, forgetting our obligations and pretending we're somewhere else, but rather a place where we can escape to reality and put ourselves and our surroundings into perspective. And it finishes like this. Life surrounds us with a lot of rubbish, a lot of unnecessary baggage, and we carry this baggage around with us each day. Sometimes its weight is almost enough to crush us. Sometimes the cares of life seem more than we can bear. That's why our oasis is so important. Once there in our private place, you see, that can be the 5 prayers, but it could just be walking along the beach here in Brighton. Once there, we can see how important our loved ones are to us. We can appreciate and give thanks for good health. We can count one by one all the good things in our lives which we so often take for granted, like a flamingo flying overhead. And maybe in our own little oasis of hope, we can spare a thought for our Creator and resolve when we go back into the wide world to try and do what's right and to serve Him and our fellows better. That little boy, he never knew that I became Muslim. He never saw me again. But you know, that little boy on the day of judgment will appear naked before Allah, as all of us will. He's probably married now with kids of his own. On the day of judgment he'll appear, and it will be read out to him from a clear book, the things he did in his life, good and bad. And the angel will read out the good things he did. You did this, and you did this, and you did this, and you did this. And he'll think, yeah, that's about it. I didn't do any more good than that. That's about right. He'll get such a shock. Because only then will the angel begin to read all the shahadas that have been declared all over the world because he introduced me to Islam. Only then will the books and the articles and the television programs and radio be read out. And all the blessings will be given to him because he introduced me to Islam. Only then all the talks in mosques and universities all over the world because he introduced me to Islam. Now most of us won't appear on the TV. Most of us won't get a medal for jumping over a pole and be the highest one to win that. We won't do that, or for running the fastest, or for whatever. We won't. We won't be famous. Most of us won't be. But each one of us, you know, is called. Islam calls each one to be quite extraordinary. When we go into the supermarket in the morning, you know, and we see that the people look at us. Oh, another Muslim coming in. You know, there's our chance to touch the lives of those people and tell them about Islam. Not by talking about Islam, but by being so nice to them that when we've left, they think, wow, that was a Muslim. They've really got something, these Muslims. There's something special they've got that we wish we had. Now, is that the example we give to the people of Brighton? Or do we go into the shop and we shut the door and the man thinks, thank God they've left. We don't need any more people like them. Islam calls us to, Islam is perfect. And it calls us to be perfect too. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're very expressive. Do you find yourself more expressive as a Muslim than you were as a Catholic?
Can you...
Do you find yourself more expressive as a Muslim than as you were as a Catholic?
Okay, Bismillah. I think that's for audiences to decide. I was always good at talking. I could always talk.
I'm a Catholic, you see.
Sorry?
I'm a Catholic.
I see. I loved being a Catholic. I really did. And all I can do is talk with great love about the people who made me the person I am. You know, and I'm giving a talk in King's College London on Monday, and it's called From the Vatican to Al-Azhar, My Journey to Islam. And I will say to the audience then, if anyone's come here to hear me say bad things about the church or the Pope, you've come to the wrong talk. Because I've got nothing bad to say. I've only got good things to say about all those people. But I would say what Islam has done for me, it's made my faith much more simple. See, for me, Islam is very simple. It's very simple. There are no priests and popes and mediators in Islam. Islam is so simple. We just come before Almighty God and we tell Him the way things are. I'm sorry. Inshallah, He forgive us for what we do, you know. It's very simple. There's no complicated ideas of original sin and all this sort of thing. In the story of Adam and Eve in the Quran, Adam and Eve are forgiven and that's the end of the story. There's no original sin for the rest of time. In Egypt, some of the Christians there, they say to me, but someone has to die, you know, to make up for the sin. Someone must die. And I said, no one needs to die. Almighty God forgave us. So I've always had the gift of the gab, really. But Islam has made me much more confident in myself, I'd say.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Wow, I think this is the first talk.
Before we have the questions, just let me say one or two things.
Yeah.
My website, www.idristawfiq.com. Now on there you'll find videos and articles and all that sort of stuff. There's also Facebook. By the way, don't think you're going to talk now because there will be questions, okay? So you can wait for a while. There are other questions, okay? On Facebook, if you go to Idris Tawfiq on Facebook and try to add me, unfortunately I can't add you because Facebook only allows me to have 5,000 friends. And if you try to add me, it will appear as though I'm rejecting you. I'm not, it's just Facebook won't let me add you. So go instead to Idris Tawfiq page, and you can like me instead. You can like me. And on there you've got videos, you've got the story of my journey to Islam. You've got all sorts of stuff. I tell you what there is on my journey to Islam. I did a thing with Press TV. Just before Christmas, I came to London for a weekend and we made a programme, half an hour, Idris Tawfiq, my journey to Islam. Now, because I'm involved, it links up with the Catholic thing, I'm very much involved. Half of my work is encouraging friendship between Muslims and those who are not Muslim, interfaith work, you know. And so before I came to London, I picked the phone and I called Archbishop Gregorios of Thyatira in Great Britain in London. He's the head of the Greek Orthodox Church. And I said, Your Eminence, I'm coming to London tomorrow. He said, oh, are you going to come and see me again? I said, I'd love to come and see you, but I'd like to bring a television crew with me. He said, fine, bring whoever you want. So on this program about my journey to Islam, we have this Greek Orthodox Archbishop talking about me. You know, that shows, that proves, you know, how important I think, as people of faith, we should be very humble towards one another. We've got a lot to learn from other people. You know, sometimes we get very arrogant and think we've got all the answers. We can learn about goodness from all sorts of people. Goodness comes from Almighty Allah. It doesn't come from the devil. So where there are good people, we have to learn from them. If there's a question now, we'll take it. If there isn't, I'll say, there's one.
Although I'm a Muslim, so what I'm going to ask is not kind of against my faith. But what can you say about people that don't believe in God? Kind of atheism. Do you think that they might have got the wrong idea about the war or something? Maybe my question is not very clear, but what can you say about not believing in God and Islam?
Okay, Bismillah. You know, in Egypt a while back, my sister said to me, she said, Brother Idris, and it was very lovely, I liked what she said, you hear the birds singing in the trees, and all I hear is background chirping. You know, for some people it is as obvious as the hand in front of them that there is a God. But for others it just isn't obvious at all. I mean, put me down on the seafront and let me watch the sun come down, and it shouts out to me about God. Shouts out. Show me a leaf, you know, and it talks to me about God. Some people, though, you know, they have no experience of God, and their only experience of God is organized religion or religious people. You know. Now, if I knew a way of convincing people there was a God, I'd put it in a bottle and I'd be a millionaire. I don't think there is such a way. So all we can do, you know, it's no good lecturing people. No, but there is a God. That's not going to convince anyone. All I'd say we can do, you know, if we're sincere believers, is we can show our non-believing friends, not just that we obey rules, I do this and I do that, certainly not, oh, I can't, I'm Muslim. You know, we need to show our friends that this religion makes a difference in our lives, you know? And maybe they might pick up something from us. But remember, faith is a gift. It's a gift from Almighty God. It's a gift that we take for granted. But it's a gift, and some people aren't given that gift ever. They just don't get the gift. And those of us who do get the gift, often we treat it as though it were no gift at all, and we let it trickle through our fingers until we lose it. And this religion and God isn't important to us. We don't want to know about God or religion. So it's difficult. But all we can do is try and tell people about God, not in words, but by authentic witness to what it means. Does that make sense? Just before one other question, there's another point I want to make about the books. And this is important for me. Wherever I go all over the world, and I travel all over the world, I don't take a penny for talks, or for radio, or television, or for anything. I don't take any money for any of it. But I've got to pay the rent. And I've got to feed hungry mouths back home. So what I do is I lug around with me books all over the world, my books. I have 9 books, I've only brought some of them here. And if you wanted to help my work of telling people about Islam, or of promoting friendship between Muslims and those who aren't, you might buy my books. The big ones are £6 and the small ones are £4. If you haven't got enough money, pay whatever you can afford. I'm not in it as a business. If you can afford, pay. But you'll be helping this work of telling the world about Islam by buying the books.
What are the options?
Sorry?
What are the books?
Oh, that's a lovely question. One is called Gardens of Delight, A Simple Introduction to Islam. That's the first book I ever wrote. You've got a question? Okay, just a second. Gardens of Delight, A Simple Introduction to Islam. I wrote that book for my English friends living in Alexandria in Egypt, who knew nothing about Islam, and all they had was a bad image about it. So I wrote the book to explain to my friends about the 5 pillars of Islam, in the kind of language I use, you know, not religious language, ordinary language. And I found that was my first, in fact that started my work off, because all of a sudden I found that not only non-Muslims were interested, but Muslims too. I thought, why would Muslims want to know anything from me? So it just talks in a very simple way about our faith. Then there's also Gift of the Nile, Land of Faith, the new one about Egypt, which I dedicate to the martyrs who've fallen. And then there are 2 little ones. One is called Talking to Muslims in the West, and the other one's called Calling Others to Islam, but there are only 2 copies of that. And I will sign them to your Auntie Marwa or your Uncle Yusuf or whoever you want. Our little brother at the back.
What was the reaction? What was the reaction of the people from the church after you converted?
That's a very good question. What was the reaction of the... Well, the reaction of... Let me say the reaction of my family first, okay? My family, when I left the priesthood, they were very upset. Because I trained for a long time, and I'd already been in the church and religious order for a lot. They were upset. But by the time I came to accept Islam, about a year and a bit later, I mean, they loved me. So they accepted. They thought it was a bit odd, but they accepted it. When I went into school, I was teaching in a school at the time. I accepted Islam on the Saturday. I went into school on the Monday morning. And I went to the headmaster, and he was a Christian, practicing Christian. We got on very well. And I said to him, "You'll never believe what happened, but on Saturday I became Muslim." He said, "Oh, at last, we've been waiting. We were wondering when it would happen." You know? And in the staff room, people clapped. And the kids gave me cards and everything. As for the people in the church, you know, when I left the church, I slipped out very quietly. I left very quietly. I didn't cause any fuss because I didn't want to upset the people that their priest was going. And even now with Catholics, I don't like to upset them and rub it in their face. But I have lots of, for example, on Monday I'm going to Lambeth Palace, where the Archbishop of Canterbury is. On Wednesday I'm meeting the Bishop of Durham. On Monday I'm also meeting the Armenian Bishop in London. So other Christians, I always go and meet them, and they've been very, very lovely really in welcoming me. So I've had no bad reactions really. Alhamdulillah, I haven't. Okay, a very clever question. Is that about it?
Any other questions? If
there's one over there, I think that's it.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is, when you decided to become, to think about Islam, how long it took to become Muslim for you?
Just you're obviously fascinated about the journey to Islam. I think we should have given that talk. I had no plan to be Muslim at all, none. And I didn't go looking for Islam at all. Islam came looking for me. Okay? Allah Almighty came looking for me to make me Muslim. From here, from that little boy in Cairo saying to me, "Assalamu alaikum," for me to declare Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, it took about a year and 6 months. Okay? And in between, I was up and down like a roller coaster, reading and meeting people and places and events. And if I was to say, is there any one thing? There's no one thing. Just lots happened during the year. And I found myself there that I was Muslim, and there I wasn't. Even the day I went to Regent's Park Mosque and became Muslim, I set out from home with no plan of becoming Muslim at all. None. And I went home and said, you never guess what happened. You know? I came home a Muslim. I had no plan to be one. In fact, I said to Yusuf Islam, who accepted my Shahada, I said, brother, I've got a question. If someone wanted to be Muslim, I don't want to be one, but just say someone did, what would he have to do? And he said to me, well, Muslims believe in one God. I said, well, I believe in one God. He said, and Muslims pray 5 times a day. And I said, well, actually, I know how to pray in Arabic. I can say the prayers by this stage in Arabic, because I taught lots of Arab kids in school. And he gave me a strange look. And he said, and Muslims fast during Ramadan. I said, actually, I fasted in Ramadan. And he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, brother, you're Muslim already. Who are you trying to fool? And when he said that, the adhan sounded for Salah al-Maghrib, Allahu Akbar. And I was like a drunken man, because in my head I could hear, brother, you're Muslim already, who are you trying to fool? And outside I could hear, Allahu Akbar. And I went up to the prayers upstairs, and I sat at the back, and when Salah al-Maghrib began, I started to cry. And I cried and cried and cried like a little baby. And when it was finished, I went to Yusuf Islam and said, I want to become Muslim, tell me what to do. And he said, say these words after me. And here I am today. And when, you know, people say to me, what a change in your life. Your life is going like this. And then all of a sudden you changed and went like this. I see no change. I just see one straight line. You know, I see now that when I was sitting in Rome, listening to those lectures about St. Thomas Aquinas and New Testament Greek and church history, I wasn't studying to be a priest, I was studying to be talking to you tonight. You know, Allah has plans that we know nothing about for each one of us. I mean, some of you sitting here tonight, you're astonished that you're sitting listening to a talk about Islam. You know, he brings us on and does all sorts of things in our lives. Inshallah, all we have to do is respond.
I just,
He's in charge. By
okay. No, I was just going to ask, do you approach talking to Islam and trying to bring people that were close to you before, like your family, in a different way than you would to sort of everyone else that you talk to about Islam, like your dawah technique to say your father or your mother? Is that, how would you approach that?
I'd say my approach with everyone is pretty much the same. I mean, my approach is not a preachy approach. My approach is a very gentle approach, and it starts with respect. And it has to be an honest respect, not just a pretend respect. If someone is a good Methodist, I respect them. I really do respect them. And if they want to stay a Methodist, I would respect their choice. You know, as Muslims we say, let there be no compulsion in religion. People can choose whatever they want. And Allah tells us there will be people who will never be Muslim. So we must respect all people, especially in Britain. You know, there's all sorts of lifestyles and behaviours that we don't approve of. But people are allowed to do whatever they want. You know, we can't force our lifestyle on other people. So my approach with all people is, this is Islam, this is the way it is, and you can take it or leave it, really. I'm not going to lose any sleep if you don't become Muslim. The choice is entirely yours. Because we sometimes forget, we don't call anyone to Islam. Allah Almighty calls to Islam. And just because we like someone, and we say, oh, I wish we could get that brother to be Muslim, that's got nothing to do with it, liking someone. You know, Allah chooses who He wills. He tells us, you know, He created the heavens and the earth and everything in between, and He punishes whom He wills and He rewards whom He wills. And it's got nothing to do with how good we are, or, you know. And with my family, it would be the same approach, you know. No, especially with your family, you don't preach at your family and tell your mum she knows better than you. You know, she bore you in her womb. She cleaned your nappy. How can you tell your mother things, you know? So all you can do with your close family is show them in your life. Especially, you know, those who are new to Islam, you need to show your parents you haven't been kidnapped by terrorists to start with. Because they're worried that you have been, and that you're going to do strange, weird things, and you'll just dress up in Pakistani clothes all of a sudden, you know? Well, you just need to show them, no, I'm British. I'm as British as I ever was. I love you with all my heart. I like my country just as much as I always used to. It's just that Islam has brought me a peace that I never had before. And inshallah that might touch them, but it might take longer with them. And if Allah chooses, He will bring them to Islam.
Any more questions? No, sister here. Okay, sorry, because okay, come here. He's lazy, he doesn't want to bring the microphone. Maybe two more. Two more questions.
I basically just had a question in regards to something touched by you before, in regards to the credibility of Al-Azhar nowadays. Al-Azhar nowadays been giving fatwas which are, I don't know where they get it from, and I'm asking you, where do you see Al-Azhar as an institution and leading in the Islamic society? Where is it going?
Okay. For example, what do you mean? For example?
Well, a lot of things. For example, sometime, like a couple of years back in Egypt, one of the Azhar sheikhs came out saying, well, if you're fasting and you're smoking, it's fine. Okay, no, I'm saying that since the revolution, things have changed.
Yes, that's in a year. Before then, they were coming out with crazy
How
stuff.
have they changed?
Okay, now.
Practically.
Okay, very good. You see, Al-Azhar, for me, Al-Azhar, I feel the most privileged man on earth to be teaching at Al-Azhar. Al-Azhar is the authoritative voice of Islam. And set free from the shackles of tyranny, it is beginning at last to speak on matters that are important. So already the Grand Sheikh Al-Azhar, just a few days ago before I left Egypt, spoke out about the situation in Syria and said that tyranny should not prevail in Syria and that the people should be allowed to determine themselves. That would never have been said ever before. You know, the Grand Sheikh has talked about Palestine and that oppression is evil. They're the sort of things I mean. No longer do they talk about smoking and about trouser suits. You understand?
He did mention that there were 30 years of the regime, all that stuff in time.
Can I ask something in regards to that?
Okay, quick question. Make it quick.
Personally, for example, I have a problem nowadays believing in the credibility of Al-Azhar when the exactly same sheikhs have been actually giving fatwas which are completely unrelated to Islam, and the same sheikhs are giving proper fatwas. I'm just asking, how is this? How are they claiming this to be?
Very good. It's a good question. It's a very good question. All I can say is that I'm there, and I can see the way things are changing. You know, in Egypt, one of the wonderful things, it doesn't make the TV, and it's slow. Things are slow to happen, and there are a lot of bad things that we need to get rid of. I mean, the revolution's only just begun. But one of the wonderful things is that in all the universities in Egypt, the deans of all the faculties, for example, are now elected by their peers. They're no longer appointed by the National Democratic Party for loyalty to the regime. But the professors themselves choose from amongst themselves. And this is in all the universities in Egypt, in Al-Azhar as well. So we're actually seeing before our eye great changes. You know, and many of those men of yesterday, they've lost their position. They're not there anymore. They've either quietly retired or they've lost positions of authority. One or two of them associated with the past are still there, but alhamdulillah, they'll go eventually. Every dog has its day, you know. If, for example, now we know that the Grand Sheikh of Al-Azhar will be elected by his peers. This is new. Well, it's not. It's used to be the case. So this has been changed. So the present Grand Imam, Dr. Taib, he's introduced this himself, knowing that he will be the first one to face this election. So a lot of yesterday's men have gone, alhamdulillah. There are some still there who are trying to change their spots, but everyone can see through it. We're not stupid, you know, just as you're not stupid. But time will play itself out. But Al-Azhar is greater than any of that and is rising up.
Okay, Sister over there had a question. And then
thank you again for speaking. I have a question. Going back to what you said about building bridges, how would you advise Muslim brothers and sisters in the room, and also myself as a Christian, in terms of building bridges with people of no faith and just Christians, Muslims, Jews, just so there's no tension?
Okay, excellent. Very good question. When I was in Singapore just 2 weeks ago for a tour, and I had dinner with the Bishop of Singapore, the Anglican bishop, and we sat, and for the first 10 minutes, we kind of were sussing each other out, you know? But after 10 minutes, we realized we liked each other, you know? And for the rest, the hour and a half or more after that, we talked honestly, you know, and we honestly agreed with one another that interfaith dialogue, relationship between people of faith or people of no faith, has to be honest. It's not about pretending. It's about me saying to the Bishop of Singapore, dear Bishop, dear Rennis, that was his name, I believe that what you believe is totally wrong, but let's have dinner again tomorrow. You know? And he said to me, I agree with you entirely. He said, I believe that what you believe as a Muslim is wrong, but the commitment is to people. We're committing ourselves to people who believe or who don't believe. So interfaith is very important. We learn from each other. It's not about compromising. You know, we don't. I believe Islam is perfect. You know, I believe it's totally right. But I have the greatest respect for people who don't believe what I believe. Not for their belief, because I believe that's wrong, but for them themselves. You know, we can be friends. Faith is too important for us to fight over. And especially in this secular age in which we live, you know, people of faith, we need to stick together. Because together we can do so much more than if we're divided on our own, and these secular people will pick us off one by one and say, you know, you can believe whatever you want, but do it behind closed doors between consenting adults. Don't let it affect society. Save the whale if you want to, but don't let it influence society. But as a body of faith, we could really change things. But unfortunately, we're still at the stage of fighting one another. How stupid. We believe in God. For God's sake, we believe in God. And yet we argue and fight with one another. No one's asking me to believe that Jesus died on the cross, because I believe he didn't. The Quran tells me he didn't. But I can be your friend. And I can recognize that you believe in God, and the things we can do together. Inshallah.
One last question. One last question. Yes.
The people will come and talk.
My question about the women's role in Al-Azhar.
Women's role in Al-Azhar?
Yes.
Who are you both?
Curious students.
Really? Are you Muslim or what are you?
Yes, we are.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Well, why do you know about Al-Azhar?
I'm curious.
Okay.
Just curious,
Okay,
honestly.
very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Please ask it. Oh, what was the question?
Women's role in Al-Azhar.
Women's role in Al-Azhar.
Yes, and thank you so much for your speech. It was really beautiful.
Allah Khalik. Women's role in Al-Azhar. Women are very, very important in Islam. You know, people tell me that women are oppressed in Islam, and I say to them, come with me to Egypt and I'll show you how oppressed they are. Come with me to any market. In the market, you'll go to the market, and the man, the husband, he'll be carrying one heavy bag here, and he'll be carrying one heavy bag here, and little Ahmed will be sitting on his shoulder, and Aisha will be here, and he'll be plodding his way through the market, and the wife will be walking behind the queen of the market. That's how oppressed she is. Okay. Now, Al-Azhar, at the moment, we teach in two separate sections. We have a section for men and a section for women. The women's section, they're much harder working, much harder working. There are some excellent scholars. Scholarship of women in Islam has been much overlooked in the past. There are wonderful, wonderful women scholars. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the greatest woman jurist we have in our history, you know, wonderful. So, Egypt is a male society. There's a lot of, we have ministers in the government who are women. So I would say give it time. Things will stay separate. There's no question that they won't stay separate. But the women's section is very, I give talks to the girls sometimes. I mean, I teach the boys, but sometimes I talk to the girls. They're far more attentive, they're hard-working, they listen better. So they have great role to play in the future. You know, I'll give you an example how Muslim women have this is just one example of a fantastic role. Palestine, for example, women are the ones who will save Palestine. Women, Muslim women. Because, inshallah, because what they do is, the woman, she looks after the money in the household. And on the Saturday, she goes to do the shopping with the kids. And she says to the kids, Yusuf and Aisha, she says, look, we're not going to buy this product here, this Coca-Cola. We're not going to buy it. I'm on TV. Will I be sued? We're not going to buy this because this company supports the so-called Israel and oppresses your brothers and sisters in Palestine. So instead we'll buy this drink. You know, so Muslim women can lead the way in you know, money counts. And in the same way, the women at Al-Azhar will marry the boys at Al-Azhar too. You know, and the more educated Muslim women we have, the better. The better for Egypt and the better for the Muslim nation. Inshallah. And thank you very much for listening.
الصلاة والسلام